Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If a Venerated Soul Reincarnated in Danmachi world. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 71, The Venerated One vs. Bel Cranel Part 2. Bel's eyes blazed with determination like a raging flame. Judas stood silently, gauntlet fists lowered but ready, his sharp gaze studying her movements. Then, boom! The ground beneath Bel cracked as she lunged forward. Her speed had multiplied, her body lighter, sharper, and more precise than before. The dull ache in her limbs was gone. Now there was only focus at pure, refined movement. She struck first, her remaining dagger flashing toward his throat. Judas tilted his head slightly, only to feel a sudden gust from below. A feint! Bel pivoted on her heel, her other hand sweeping up a hidden knife she had drawn from her boot, slashing in a clean arc toward his side. Clang! Judas barely managed to block with his gauntlet. The sheer force behind that strike surprised him. It wasn't just raw power. It was perfect timing and leverage. I can see it, the shadow of Miss Althea in her movements. Just how much grueling training has she endured until now? A faint smirk crossed his lips. Bel pressed on, her focus razor-sharp. She moved again, her style now a blur of rhythm and precision, every motion flowing seamlessly into the next. Her footwork was tight and deliberate, each step guided by instinct, her center of gravity shifting effortlessly to maintain balance. Her eyes tracked every twitch of Judas's muscles, reading his movements before he could even react. A dagger thrust, redirected into a spin. A block, turned into a counter-strike. Every motion was a lesson carved into her bones through years of harsh drills under Althea's unyielding gaze. Judas blocked another flurry of attacks, but even he had to take a step back. The rhythm of her offense was suffocating, unrelenting, and beautifully calculated. Impressive. She actually made me take a step back. She's not fighting like a rookie adventurer. She's fighting like someone who's faced death head-on many times. Bel ducked under his sweeping strike, rolled to the side, and with a flick of her wrist, sent her dagger spinning toward his blind spot. Judas caught it midair with his gauntlet, only for Bel to use that split-second distraction to close the gap. Her knee shot up toward his chest. Thud! The impact forced Judas to slide back a few inches, his expression tightening. That was close. He sighed in relief and looked at Bel, whose cheeks puffed up in frustration. I almost landed a hit. Judas, you're so unfair. She pouted at the palm that caught her knee, halting her assault completely. He released her and quickly regained his stance. Bel twirled her dagger back into her hand, her breathing steady despite the pace. You're not bad yourself. You've learned to read movements and predict intent, he said, brushing dust off his shoulder. Mother doesn't go easy on me. I learned the hard way that she punishes every wasted motion. Bel smiled faintly, wiping the sweat from her brow. I can tell. Judas replied with a soft chuckle. It seems like you've found your own style. He straightened, exhaling through his nose. I had to, Bel said quietly. I want to become a hero, so that the people I care about can smile. And also. Her grip tightened on her daggers, color rising to her cheeks. There's someone I look up to. Someone I admire very much, and I want to be worthy of standing beside that person one day. Her voice nearly squeaked, but her eyes remained unwavering. If Freya could see Bel's soul right now, it would be shining brilliantly, brighter than ever before. The Felna on her back flared to life, the divine symbol of Hestia's blessing glowing in threads of light. From the sidelines, Althea leaned forward slightly. Limit off. She muttered quietly as her eyelids opened. What? Shock flickered in Judas's eyes, not because Bel had unlocked Limit Off, but because of her earlier words. A person she admires? She already has one? His mind drifted to the golden-haired girl of the Loki familia, the heroine of the story, Ace Wallenstein. No. Wait. Those two shouldn't have met yet. Then he saw the dreamy, soft gaze in Belle's eyes. Locked firmly on him. The person she looks up to, is it? He didn't dare finish that thought. Judas, I want to win. Belle shouted. She could feel a power surging within her, strengthening every part of her body. She didn't know what it was, but she didn't have time to think. The only thing she knew, deep in her instincts, was that in this state, she felt like she could win against anyone. You want to win? Judas said, his tone low and fierce. Then earn it. In an instant, they moved again, two blurs colliding beneath the soft light filtering through the training grounds. Each strike was fast and sharp. Faster. Belle's daggers clashed against Judas's gauntlets like ringing chimes of steel. Stronger. She roared in her heart. To anyone watching, it would have been hard to believe this was the same clumsy, timid girl who idolized heroes. Now, her technique, her composure, was that of one. When the clash finally broke apart, both stood several paces away, breathing heavily but smiling faintly at each other. Amazing, if Belle had fought Xanis Lustra like this. He compared the captain of the Soma Familia to the Belle before him. She might have actually won. He had no doubt about it. Belle could contend with a level 2 adventurer with her level of skill and technique. And with limit off active, her chances of victory tilted even further in her favor. For a moment, silence filled the air. Then Judas smiled faintly, eyes gleaming with genuine respect. Belle. I'm ending this right here and now. His tone was calm, but resolute. What a coincidence, Judas. I was thinking the same thing. Belle lowered her stance, her dagger poised to strike again. The ground cracked beneath her feet as the next round began, fiercer, faster, and far more intense than before. Belle hurled her dagger like a silver star. Judas blocked it with his gauntlet as it ricocheted off. But that was only a distraction. Grabbing the spare dagger on her waist, she crouched low before him, striking while his arm was still raised. Her dagger darted forward, fastest, cleanest, most precise strike she'd ever thrown. I can do it. Her heart pounded, victory within reach. However, too slow. Reality hit. Judas moved faster than her eyes could follow, his fist slamming into her gut. Arg! Belle grunted, the dagger slipping from her grasp. Before she could recover, Judas kicked her weapon away and stopped his fist an inch from her cheek. It's my win. Chapter 72, An Embarrassing Oath. I'll give both of your performances 40 points. Althea said, stepping forward to stand before them. 40 points? That's not bad. Belle said with a weak smile as she took a sip from her potion. Don't get a big head. Althea added flatly. That's your overall grade. Both of you scored 20 points each. Hearing that, Belle's shoulders slumped. Of course. She sighed before glancing toward Judas, who had his back turned to them, overlooking the city. Ah, he's so cool. To Belle, his figure looked noble and knightly, his clothes and hair swaying with the wind only added to the effect. Her eyes sparkled dreamily, like a shoujo panel filled with flowers whenever the handsome lead appeared. But that fantasy shattered a moment later. What do you think you're doing, my foolish disciple? Trying to act cool? The mood was instantly ruined as Althea marched over and tugged his ear. Hey, let go. Judas winced in pain before muttering a quick spell to slip free from her grasp. Looking at his figure which had turned mist-like, Althea put her fingers on her chin with a thoughtful expression. If you can turn into mist to dodge a scolding, then you can damn well use it to flank an enemy. Use your cowardice creatively next time. It was then the aura around her took a sudden shift. Oh no. The color from Belle's face completely drained and became as white as a ghost. She had a bad feeling, every time she saw her aunt like this, it can only mean one thing. Now that you two are done goofing around. Next, I want to see your ability to work together. Her gaze locked onto them like a predator. Both of you be prepared to die because your next opponent will be me. Belle visibly shivered under her icy stare while a bead of sweat fell from the side of Judah's face. The next few hours were nothing but full of anguish and harsh words that came out of Althea's mouth. Move. Now. Stop staring at each other like lovers and act like soldiers. You, Belle, your angles are wide and sloppy. Close them and control the distance. Judas, stop telegraphing your feints. Synchronize your breath. If one of you breathes early, the other is already exposed. You call that a counter? That was a flail. Control your wrists, precision wins more fights than brute force. Do not waste stamina on theatrics. Every wasted motion is a step toward death. Belle, lock your elbows. You're leaking power at the shoulder. Use the hips, not the arms. Judas, when you vanish, don't vanish to flee. Vanish to reappear where an opponent won't expect you. Make the air itself betray their senses. Eyes on the rhythm. Set a rhythm. Break it, then punish the moment the enemy hesitates. Don't think. React. Then think while you react. Intelligence in motion or you'll be nothing but fast meat. One more round. Harder. This time, I want coordinated intent, not two people taking turns to shine. She made sure to imprint her words into their minds even as they lay exhausted and panting, their backs pressed against the ground. In particular, Althea was harsher toward Judas. His ability to heal made him last longer than he should have. But if there was one thing that surprised him, it was Belle's ability to keep up with Althea's relentless, Spartan-like training. The more exhausted she became, the more she seemed able to spring back to life. Judas wondered if her willpower even surpassed his, despite him possessing the eternal persistence skill. No. It must be a skill that enhances her endurance. If Belle had endured Althea's training since childhood, it was no surprise she developed a skill because of it. After a relentless set of drills, Judas and Belle had taken so much punishment that they could no longer move. Althea paused, stepped closer, and stared down at their beaten bodies. You both survived this long because fate was kind. Don't let it buy you another moment next time. Train like you plan to die today, and make sure you're the one still standing when it ends. Neither Judas nor Belle replied, the only sounds that escaped their lips were weak grunts of pain. She stared at them for a few seconds before turning around and grabbing a potion from a nearby bag. That's it for today's training, she said, glancing up at the blue sky before pouring the potion over their bodies. Same time tomorrow, my disciple, make sure you're never late. Althea added as she picked Belle up like a sack of potatoes and vanished on the spot. Ha! Now I feel sorry for Belle, having to endure this every single day. Now left alone, Judas enjoyed the peace and silence as he lay on the ground for a few minutes before finally sitting up. He looked toward the sky and estimated the time based on the sun's position. It's almost 10 a.m. I must head to the central square and meet up with Elise and the others immediately. Forcing himself to his feet, Judas grabbed his bag and changed into a fresh set of clothes. Not only that, he also put on his newly bought armor and the undershirt Rose had given him. Looks good. After checking himself over, his figure vanished. Feeling the wind brush against his skin, Judas leapt from rooftop to rooftop before landing in a narrow alley. Judas, over here. Elisa's voice called out, and when he turned, he saw her, Rio, Kagaya, and Lyra gathered by the fountain. How was it? Your first day of training under the legendary silence of the Hera Familia? Kagaya asked, curiosity gleaming in her eyes. She's intense, I guess. Judas muttered, rubbing a sore spot on his body, the image of Althea's fist still vivid in his mind. I can tell you've been through quite an ordeal if you're talking like that, Lyra said, leaning forward with her hands on her hips. Judas gave a weak smile. Are you sure you're in proper condition to explore the dungeon, Mr. Spade? Rio asked, concern soft in her voice. Thanks for worrying about me, but I'm fine, Miss Ryu. Judas replied with a light smile. If you say so, then let's head out, Elise said cheerfully as she swooped in between them. To celebrate Lion's return, even if it's only temporary, and Judas joining our party, let's do the thing. She turned dramatically on her heel and raised her hand with a grin. The others visibly flinched at their captain's enthusiasm and averted their gazes. Ha? The thing? What does she mean by that? Judas asked, glancing at Lyra beside him. Ugh, something embarrassing, that's what. Lyra muttered, her grin stiffening as her mouth twitched. Do we really have to do it? I don't like doing the thing. Even the steadfast Kagaya murmured. Lyra. Kagaya. Even Rio seemed mildly embarrassed but managed to hold it in. Come on, everyone, here goes. Elise stretched her hands forward, palms facing down at waist level. The others reluctantly followed, stacking their hands on top of hers. Judas, come on, join us. Elise said, flashing a wide smile. I have no idea what's going on, but sure. Judas said with a shrug, adding his hand to the pile. Do what you must. Adjust the balance. Until the day we become stars. Leave a gleaming tail on this earth like a shooting star. I swear on the sword and wings of justice. Elisa's passionate voice carried through the plaza like a vow for knights of justice to uphold. I swear on the sword and wings of justice. Kagaya, Lyra, and Rio repeated the final line in unison, then turned to Judas expectantly. For the first time, he understood why they had looked so mortified earlier. Their eyes said it all. We already embarrassed ourselves, now it's your turn. Judas sighed with a wry smile. I swear on the sword and wings of justice. Chapter 73, Miracle Heal. Before we head out, there's something I'd like to do first. Judas spoke up, causing the others to turn toward him. What is it? Elise asked with a tilted head, but Judas didn't immediately reply. Instead, he walked in front of Lyra and Kagaya. Lyra, do you want your eye back? He asked, which made her unconsciously touch her eye patch. Eh? What do you mean? Lyra asked with a frown. I know I should have told you this sooner, but I can heal your other eye, restore it to what it once was. Back then, Judas had only been a third-tier mage when he first met the Estria Familia, during the time they were nearly wiped out by the Juggernaut. Pseudo-Miracle Heal. That was the spell he had used on them, an inferior version of the Miracle Heal he now possesses. The healing magic he performed back then was incomplete and could only restore a single eye, after Lyra had lost both when her eyeballs were melted from their sockets. He then turned his gaze to Kagaya. And you, Kagaya. When I sparred with you, I noticed something, a slight misalignment in the bones of your right arm. Kagaya blinked, her hand instinctively moving to her arm. I couldn't heal you properly back then. Judas continued. But now, I have the strength to do so. All I need is your word of affirmation. His eyes were steady, calm, and resolute as he awaited their response. Kagaya and Lyra exchanged a glance, then looked back at him. Are you an idiot? Kagaya said bluntly, crossing her arms. Who the hell would reject something like that? Lyra chuckled nervously. To be honest, I've been wanting to ask if you could bring back my eye for a while now, but I didn't want to sound selfish. She smiled, scratching her cheek. But hey, since you brought it up, who am I to say no? Judas exhaled through his nose, shaking his head slightly. You too, usually people say thank you first. He muttered. He raised his hand, and a radiant green magic circle shimmered into existence beside his palm. Miracle Heal. A soothing emerald light burst forth, wrapping around Kagaya and Lyra. The glow pulsed like a heartbeat before gradually fading into them. This feels relaxing. Lyra murmured, a hum in her voice. Yeah, refreshing. Kagaya added, rolling her right shoulder. It's as if I just bathed in the energy of nature itself. When she pulled back her sleeve, her arm looked flawless. No scars, no stiffness. She clenched her fist, testing her strength, and threw a few sharp punches into the air. You're amazing, Judas, she said quietly, a rare, genuine smile crossing her lips. I thought I'd have to live with an imperfect arm forever after even Ermid failed to heal it. Unsheathing her katana, she gave it a few practice swings. Each slash was fast, clean, and precise, the swish of her blade cutting the air resonated like music. Still, Judas could tell her movements weren't quite as sharp as before. It'll take some time to get back to my peak, Kagaya admitted, sheathing the sword again. I got used to compensating for my old arm. Then, to Judas's surprise, she dropped to one knee, bowing her head as the tip of her sheathed blade touched the ground. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Judas. There was no sarcasm, no hesitation, only sincerity. A warrior's bow. In her entire life, the number of times the prideful Kagaya had willingly bowed to anyone were few and far between. Kagaya. Ryu looked on with a dazed expression. The image of her old rival bowing to someone like this was something she never expected to see today. Ha ha. I guess it's time to take this old thing off, Lyra muttered as she pulled off her eye patch. Her closed eye, which hadn't opened since the Juggernaut incident 5 years ago, finally touched sunlight for the first time since that day. Ah! Her hands trembled as she raised them over her now working pair of eyes. It worked! I can see with both my eyes again. She took a deep breath to calm herself and let out a contented smile. Hey, Lyra turned her head toward Judas but stammered, unable to voice her thoughts. I'm still not good at expressing my gratitude. She rubbed her forehead with a sigh, then took another deep breath to collect herself. Judas, thanks, I guess. She said it while turning slightly to the right, rubbing the back of her head. It's nothing. Judas waved his hand dismissively, his gaze shifting between Kagaya and Lyra. Don't be so humble. That was amazing of you to heal them like that. As their captain, I'd like to say my thanks as well, Elise said as she stepped forward and rested an arm over his shoulder with a big smile. Mr. Spade, as their friend, I would also like to express my gratitude, Ryu added with a polite bow. Judas didn't say anything and simply nodded with a smile. As they walked toward the entrance of the dungeon, the party's mood couldn't have been any lighter. Even the foul-mouthed Kagaya seemed to be in unusually good spirits. He. Judas, I bet you were trying to use your healing magic to get us into your harem, huh? You've already got Elise and Ryu in the bag, and now you're trying to score some points with me and Kagaya. Lyra smirked as she shot him a teasing look. Humph, that might be the case. I wouldn't be surprised if you ended up becoming greedy for my beauty. Your personality might be boring and bland, but you're strong and handsome. If you confess to me, there's a chance I might accept. Of course, Lyra and Kagaya quickly returned to their usual selves. Maybe it was to hide the awkwardness from earlier, but teasing remarks kept spilling from their mouths. Lyra! Kagaya! Stop spouting such vulgarity. Though the teasing was aimed at Judas, Ryu was the one who turned red. The pure-hearted elf couldn't take it and shouted scolding words at her friends. Hearing their banter, Judas barely reacted, but that didn't mean he could completely tune out their words. A lover, huh? His mind drifted to Estilon and the life he once lived. Despite being the Spirit King, Estilon never had children, as spirits were biologically incapable of reproduction. As a result, feelings of lust or romance were foreign to him, and he remained single for his entire life. Alden. Estilon, both of them died as virgins. That realization made Judas reflect on his current life as well. 3 lifetimes, 0 girlfriends. A sad statistic, probably a world record. While Judas was lost in thought, Elise clapped her hands loudly, cutting through the banter. All right, everyone. We're about to head into the dungeon. Save that kind of energy for killing as many monsters as possible. Elise displayed her leadership once again, quickly calming the party before their teasing turned into a real argument. Let's not think about it. He shook his head and followed the girls down the spiral staircase. Mornings are spent training with Althea, afternoons for dungeon diving, and evenings are dedicated to repairing my mana core. He realized just how packed his schedule had become. Of course, he wasn't planning to explore the dungeon every single day, but he ensured that every hour of his day was spent productively. Judas? Elise turned towards him. Right with you. Judas watched the backs of his new companions with a smile. Chapter 74, A Greedy Palum. On the 24th floor of the dungeon. Right there is a group of deadly hornets coming towards us. Ria, use your magic to take care of them quickly. Elise, as the party leader, shouted out commands. Hearing this, Rio nodded and began chanting while moving. In the sky of a now distant forest. Infinite stars scattered in the endless night sky. Respond to my foolish voice, give me now divine protection of starfire. Grant the mercy of light to the one who abandoned you. She was swift, moving like the wind. No matter how much the monsters tried to interrupt her, Ryu was unbothered and continued to chant as if it were nothing. Concurrent chanting, the advanced casting technique that Mika told me about. Judas took note as he cast a couple of fireballs at a monster that charged toward him. She seems to be really good at it. Magic stones and item drops littered the ground, which Lyra quickly picked up, acting as the party's impromptu supporter. Seriously, making a palum like me do this type of work, this seems a bit racist, don't you think? Lyra teased with a smirk. Put a sock in it, you shrimp. You were the one who volunteered in the first place. Kagaya replied with a cold snort. Come, wandering wind, the wandering traveler. Cross the sky and run through the wilderness, run faster than anything else. Imbue the light of stardust and destroy the enemy. Ryu's voice echoed throughout the chamber as dozens of glowing green orbs formed around her. Luminous wind. The devastating explosion caused by her spell spoke volumes of its power. Despite not being a mage, Ryu's spell possessed the firepower to match one. Their teamwork is seamless. I, on the other hand, feel like a misplaced piece trying to force itself into the picture. Judas thought to himself. The 13th to the 24th floors were classified as the middle floors. If they were to go one level deeper, they would finally step foot into the lower floors. This lineup, it's a bit unfair. A party consisting of him, Elise, Kagaya, Ria, and Lyra. Even if he were excluded, 2 level 5s and 2 level 4s were already too much for the monsters on the 24th floor. 3 days had passed since the chaos with Alphea shook the city. After spending so much time with them these past few days, Judas had gotten to know a lot about the members of the Familia of Justice. Alright gang, let's go. Elise said with a smile as she decapitated a monster right in front of her. Right now, their goal was to head to the 27th floor. Judas followed them without saying a word. If we wanted a challenge, only the deeper floors could give us that. But he knew that was impossible. Not to mention that it would take multiple days if they wanted to explore that deep into the dungeon. The Astrea Familia were too busy preparing themselves for their upcoming expedition, with Lyra doing most of the logistical work. They had the strength to venture into the deep floors, but simply couldn't afford to because of their responsibilities. Are you upset that we can't go further into the dungeon? Elise appeared beside him as the party walked down the stairway to the floor below. Not at all. I'm glad to be able to party with such great adventurers. Hearing his flattery, Elise couldn't help but smirk as she felt her heart leap with joy. Of course, to be able to fight alongside a perfect and pretty lady like myself, you are one lucky man, Judas. Elise exclaimed, puffing out her chest. You too, be quiet. I sense a couple of monsters ahead. Kagaya's sharp tone rang in their ears as she got into a battle stance and gripped her sword firmly. The rest of the party looked at each other and nodded. Let's go. Elise brandished her sword as everyone jumped into action. The monsters on these floors could only howl in agony in the face of their assault. A few hours later, Judas and the rest of the party made their way toward the exit as Lyra stretched her arms the moment she saw the sky. It's always a refreshing feeling every time we come back to the surface. Lyra said as she put down the giant bag she carried on her back. Now, it's time for us to split the loot once again. The pink-haired Paolum peeked inside the bag of loot. Here's your share, Judas. I did the calculations in my head. It should sell for around 5 million valis. Lyra said as she distributed the loot and handed him a sack full of monster stones and item drops. You better not scam me this time, you sneaky Paolum. Judas grabbed the sack and slung it over his shoulder, where it hung against his back. The first time they had partied together, Lyra had intentionally taken a chunk of his share without him knowing. Since Judas was only a rookie who had just started out as an adventurer, he didn't know the exact values of many items and loot that could be found in the dungeon. You might think that the knowledge he gained from Estilon would prevent that from happening. However, you have to remember that the world building of Celestia and Danmachi are fundamentally different, even if they both fall under the same fantasy genre. What's considered valuable in Danmachi might hold little worth in Celestia, while something rare in Celestia could be commonplace in Danmachi. Judas isn't omniscient, he can't just know everything out of nowhere. It wasn't until Elise and Rio caught on to what Lyra was doing that her little scheme was foiled. Even though he was taking lessons from Rose, there was only so much he could learn in such a short amount of time. This event made Judas realize how shallow his knowledge was, which was why he took Rose's lessons much more seriously. Hee, come on, that was just a little prank. Lyra flashed her pearly white teeth, not a shred of shame on her face. A prank, huh? A malicious grin spread across Judas' face as he cast a spell. Seeing the look on his face, Lyra felt a sense of bad premonition. Ah, shit. The floor beneath Lyra turned to ice, causing her to slip and land on her back. Ouch. Sitting back up, Lyra rubbed her back and looked up at Judas, who was holding a piece of ore in his hands before tucking it into his bag of loot. An orichalcum ore you hid from me, now I actually have 5 million. It was a pleasure doing business with you, Miss Lyra. Judas said with the same cheeky grin she usually gave others. Touché. Lyra sighed in defeat. Deserved. Elise said with a wide smile. Lyra, it is not good to scam your friends. Ryu admonished the Paolum with a stern voice. Lyra, were you testing Judas just then? Kagaya asked as their gazes met. What are you talking about? I'm just a greedy Paolum trying to make a quick buck. Lyra said with a shrug, unbothered and nonchalant. Everyone in the party stared at her with smiling faces, as if they had already figured out her hidden intentions. Looks like I got figured out. Lyra thought as she shifted her gaze to Judas. Well, with this, he shouldn't get tricked so easily now. She returned a smile. The sun had begun to set, blessing the city with another peaceful night. Chapter 75, an overused trope. When an individual bearing the title Spirit King exists, most would expect him to be regal, dignified, and majestic. My liege, the time to meet Lady Akasha for magic training has already passed. She's been waiting in the training grounds for hours. But if you asked Cameron, the fairy knight, the reality was the complete opposite. Just 5 more minutes. Estilon mumbled as he tossed and turned in bed, looking completely relaxed. Cameron, wearing a full suit of armor, couldn't help but sigh. Her king was always like this, lazy and acting like a complete needy. Most of the time, he left the management of the sacred forest to his subordinates just so he could slack off. A complete hands-off boss. Only when he appeared in public did he display a mature and kingly demeanor. But in front of those he trusted, his true self emerged. That means he considers me someone he trusts. Cameron thought, smiling softly. Of course, when a great threat rises to endanger the sacred forest, Estilon is always the first to stand in its defense. So even though his subordinates often grow frustrated with his carefree ways, their respect for him never wavers. Estilon. You son of a bitch. Just as she was about to continue persuading her king to get out of bed, a loud explosion erupted inside the room, followed by an angry shout. As a knight sworn to protect her king, Cameron surprisingly didn't react much, she simply sighed. Akasha. Estilon shot up, eyes wide in shock as he stared at the giant hole in his wall. Standing there was a beautiful woman with white hair and golden eyes. Akasha, why? Before Estilon could finish, a hand grabbed his face and threw him skyward, creating another hole, this time through the roof. Lady Akasha, please calm down your anger. Cameron tried to reason, but was immediately silenced when Akasha's murderous glare met her eyes. Only when Akasha flew through the roof and disappeared from sight did Cameron exhale in relief. My liege, I wish you luck, she muttered, signaling toward the door. You can come in now. Make sure to leave this place spotless. Workers carrying tools and materials entered in droves and immediately began repairs. The fact that no one seemed surprised meant this had happened many times before. Ouch! Thrown onto the ground, Estilon groaned and brushed the dirt off his back, only for a terrifying pressure to descend upon him. Ah, shit! He slowly looked up to see Akasha, the legendary first mage, her expression twisting into something scarier than a demon's. I've been standing in the training grounds, baking under the sun for hours, she said coldly. Do you know what I was thinking during that time? Her glare could have bored a hole through his skull. That, you care about me deeply? Estilon replied with a crooked grin. The only answer he received was a searing beam of energy shot straight at his face. With a sharp exhale, Estilon thrust out his hand, summoning a lime-colored barrier of light that shielded him from the destructive blast. He glanced behind, and froze. The entire mountain range was gone. There was no deafening explosion, no shockwave, just a perfectly silent, controlled annihilation, as if the mountains had been erased from existence. I told you not to use your Spirit King powers during magic training. Akasha scolded, clicking her tongue in annoyance. I'm only at the 8th tier. Estilon barked back. There's no way I can block that kind of attack with a simple magic barrier. Are you trying to kill me? To clarify, Estilon's power as the Spirit King, granted by the World Tree, was completely separate from the magic drawn from his mana core. At present, he wielded two distinct power systems, which gave rise to two versions of himself. One is Spirit King Estilon, and another as 8th tier Archmage Estilon, disciple of Akasha Solmir. The latter was the identity he used whenever he left the forest for personal reasons. Maybe if you actually worked hard, you'd have reached the 9th tier by now. Akasha said with a sharp gaze. I'm not a monster of talent like you, someone who hit the 12th tier in less than 15 years. Estilon shot back, rubbing his temples. Do you have any idea how long it took me to reach where I am now? I do. I'm your master, remember? She replied flatly. But I'm still disappointed that it took you 1,000 years just to become a measly archmage. Honestly, you're the least talented student I've ever had. Her words hit him like an arrow through the heart. The dignified and respected Spirit King, she continued, turns out to be a complete dunce at magic. If the world knew that, you'd be the laughingstock of every mage alive. All right. You can stop now. Estilon surrendered, raising both hands. Akasha placed a finger on her chin, studying him in silence. What is it? Why are you looking at me like that? He asked, brow raised. I'm just curious. I should have asked this before, she murmured. But why do you even want to learn magic? You're already powerful enough as you are. Her golden eyes met his calm blue ones as the forest breeze rustled the leaves around them. It's redundant, she continued. For someone like you, who was born with great power. To want to learn magic, a power used by mortals. Estilon's answer, however, caught her off guard. I just think magic's cool. That's all. He said it so casually, shrugging like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Cool. Akasha repeated, dumbfounded. That's it? No profound reason? No hidden purpose? She grabbed his shoulders and shook him. Yeah. Why? Do you want me to make one up for you? He teased, gripping her wrists to stop her. But... His deadpan expression finally broke her composure. Akasha smirked, then burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. I should have known, but hearing it from you directly somehow makes me feel relieved. She wiped a tear from her eye, her expression softening.
Estelon, you probably don't realize it. Ever since the day you saved me and took me in.
When I saw you command wind, fire, and earth with a mere gesture, I was inspired.
Because of you, I discovered magic.
Because of you, mortals now possess the power to stand against the gods.
You were my beginning, though it still baffles me how someone like you can be so utterly untalented. Seeing her gentle smile, Estelon couldn't help but smile back.
After a moment of peace, Akasha's expression hardened once again.
Now then, she said, a dark purple flame flickering above her palm. Let's resume your training.
And remember, no Spirit King powers.
Flames with the destruction attribute? Estelon thought, eyes shrinking as he instinctively took a few cautious steps back.
Among the disciples of the first mage, there was a hidden nickname that they used behind her back.
The Demon King of Training.
True to her title, her training methods were merciless. When it came to pushing others to their limits, she could be as cruel as the Demon King himself.
Another memory fragment?
Judas groaned inwardly, a low sound escaping his lips.
Althea and Akasha.
Those two are way too similar.
Don't tell me Althea's brutal training unlocked that particular memory?
He winced, raising his head as a dull headache pulsed behind his temples.
Did I pass out?
As his eyes fluttered open, the sharp scent of alcohol immediately filled his nose.
Ah, right.
After a successful dungeon dive together, we went to Mia's tavern to celebrate, and I got forced to drink after losing a bet. Looking at the passed-out figures of Elise and the others, Judas cast a spell on himself to sober up.
Mr. Spade, it seems you're awake.
He turned to Ria, dressed in her waitress uniform and carrying a tray of empty cups.
You should go home. Don't worry about them, they'll wake up soon enough.
Judas nodded and tried to stand up, but his legs gave out and he tripped.
Exclamation point. Ryu noticed and tried to catch him. Ah. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately.
His hand landed on a compromising spot.
Judas froze.
His hand had completely cupped Ria's right breast, making the elf turn bright red.
This scene.
It reminded him of Belle's luck development ability, how that white-haired rabbit always managed to get himself tangled up in situations like this.
The Venerated one. A skill born from the world's favor. How is this doing me a favor? Judas shouted in his mind. No way. He did it. Holy crap, I always wanted to do that. Yeah, look at Ria's face, meow.
The rest of the customers and waitresses who witnessed this scene whistled and grinned lewdly.
Wahaha. Finally. A good show. Kaya. That day, Judas Spade became a legend among the customers of the Hostess of Fertility. A new nickname was added to his growing list. The Elf Slayer. Chapter 76, in imminent return. Hee, you're still thinking about what happened yesterday, huh, lion? Lyra teased with a sly grin.
Hearing her words, the tips of Ria's ears couldn't help but turn red. They were now on the 27th floor, walking through what adventurers refer to as the Water City, making their way up to the surface after their party had reached as far as the 29th floor.
Judas, I can't believe you actually gathered the courage to grope Lion.
You seem like a gentleman, but in reality, all men are nothing more than beasts. Lyra added, her amusement visible on her face as her eyes curved into crescent moons. Throughout the dungeon dive, the girls had noticed that Ryu and Judas had been subtly avoiding each other, creating a slight tension within the group.
Thankfully, this didn't affect their teamwork, and their entire dungeon exploration had gone smoothly. TSK, I can't believe I missed out on something entertaining.
Kagaya spoke with a voice full of regret. She had been passed out drunk when it happened, and only found out because the other customers had explained everything.
Lyra.
Kagaya, please shut up. Rio's voice was hoarse as her head hung low. Surprisingly, Elise, who was usually the loudest and most obnoxious of the group, was quiet. She walked ahead of the party, showing only her back toward them.
As for Judas?
He followed a few steps behind, keeping his distance. That Zeno's mermaid, she's been following us for quite some time. Judas thought as he turned his head to the right, spotting a cute pair of eyes peeking out from behind a rock. The moment their gazes met, the mermaid flinched and hid herself beneath the water. Those eyes, they didn't have a hint of hostility, unlike the monsters I've seen so far. That's definitely a Zeno's. Thankfully, it seems Elise and the others haven't noticed her yet. Although he hadn't made contact with the Xenos, as far as he was concerned, they were not enemies. Not on good terms, but not on bad terms either. After remembering how Ace reacted to the existence of talking monsters back in Season 3. Although Elise and the others are trustworthy, I don't know what they'll think if they find out intelligent monsters exist. Still, he could easily imagine Elise being accepting toward them. Since Lyra and Kaguya trusted their leader deeply, they'd most likely follow suit. There's no need to rush things. Whatever happens to the Xenos has nothing to do with me right now. He put those thoughts aside and stared at the giant waterfall in the distance, the Great Fall, a massive cascade estimated to be 400 meters wide and twice as long. It started from the 25th floor and stretched all the way to the 27th. When Judas had first stepped foot into these floors and saw it, the intrusive thought of diving off the waterfall had crossed his mind more than once. Maybe in the future. Mr. Spade. The sound of Ryu's voice cut through his thoughts. He turned to see her looking straight at him. Don't stay too far behind. This is still the dungeon, we don't know when monsters might ambush us. Before Judas could reply, Ryu quickly cut him off. Don't worry, I'm not angry about what happened. I know it was an accident. Please don't act so distant because of me. Ryu's sky blue eyes met Judas's purple ones. Right, sorry about that. Judas said, offering a light smile as he rejoined the group. Apology accepted. Ryu nodded in satisfaction. Elise, who overheard their exchange, sighed in relief before breaking into a bright grin. That's right, everyone, let's stay vigilant. Just as she said that, the river beside them stirred violently. A high-pitched screech filled the air as a fish monster burst from the water, jaws wide. A Voltimiria. I finally get to see one. Judas muttered, recognizing the blackish-purple, stone-scaled body that Rose had shown him in one of her lessons. Despite visiting these floors several times before, this was his first encounter with that type of monster. A rare creature found only in certain parts of the 27th floor, where deep waters and strong currents met. It was also one of the strongest monsters on the floor. Oof. But that didn't matter, because the moment it appeared, Kaguya had already sliced the monster to pieces before it even touched the ground. More incoming. Lyra shouted, pointing at the water. Sure enough, Judas saw the surface ripple violently before a swarm of fish monsters burst out toward them. Woohoo! Now this is more like it. Judas, watch how this beautiful maiden slices these fishies down. Elise shouted excitedly, clearly eager to show off. Hey! The person with the least kills has to pay for dinner tonight. Lyra added, hurling several bombs with a grin. Of course, the monsters on this floor were no match for the group, and they wiped them out with ease. I can't just sit here and do nothing after hearing that, can I? The corner of Judas's lips curved upward as a magic circle appeared over his palm, joining in on the fun. The next day, atop the city walls, 3 figures could be seen engaged in a spar. But if you asked Judas, it wasn't much of a spar, it was a one-sided beatdown, as Althea relentlessly struck with fists, feet, and weapons without mercy. Arg! Ugh! The sound of flesh hitting concrete echoed through the area. 2 bodies hit the ground. Althea looked down at Judas and Belle, both gasping for breath and looking worse for wear. Judas, you alright? Belle panted between breaths. Yeah. He replied, chest heaving up and down. Alright, that's it for today's training. Althea said calmly, opening a healing potion and splashing it over both of them without even looking. There'll be no training tomorrow, so enjoy your rest day. She hoisted Belle onto her shoulder with one arm. What? A rest day? You actually give rest days? Judas stood abruptly, eyes wide, only to immediately regret it as pain exploded through his body.
What? You don't want to rest and would rather train more?
Her tone was flat, but her gaze was sharp.
No, a rest day is good. Judas closed his eyes, exhaling in relief.
I'm not that harsh. I only let you experience the brink of death a minimum of 10 times a week, she said. Besides, too much training can be bad.
If you don't rest once in a while, your body will break. With that, Althea leapt off the wall and disappeared from sight.
Used to her abrupt exits by now, Judas took his time healing himself before standing back up.
On the 50th floor of the dungeon, another safety point where no monsters spawned, similar to the 18th floor. A flag bearing a Joker symbol waved proudly in the air.
Findame, the Paolum captain of the Loki Familia, raised his voice across the encampment.
We're returning to the surface.
The words echoed like a battle cry, carrying with them the weight of triumph and fatigue alike, a solemn herald of the return of one of Orario's greatest familiars.
Chapter 77, The Minotaur Incident.
It was the break of dawn, the first light of the sun had just begun to peek over the horizon.
Breathe in, breathe out.
A glowing magic circle illuminated the training grounds. In the center of the Loki Familia's base, seated in a meditative pose, was Judas Spade, his body surrounded by radiant streams of light. Now that my body's gotten used to waking up this early, the time I used to spend training with Althea and Belle, I'll use it to repair my mana core instead. Even with his schedule packed to the brim, his top priority remained the restoration of his fractured mana core. Never slacking for even a moment, a faint humming filled the air as a whirlpool of mana gathered around him. Even when silence gives him a day off, he's still working this hard. From the window of her room upstairs, Loki watched with a soft smile before taking a slow sip of her coffee.
I've got a good feeling about today.
Her gaze drifted toward the Tower of Babel in the distance, where the dungeon was located. Her smile widened as anticipation colored her voice. Her godly intuition told her that the quiet, peaceful Twilight Manor was about to be quiet and peaceful no more.
Oh? Are my eyes deceiving me? Miss Belle, you're actually early today. Lily exclaimed with wide eyes upon seeing the familiar white-haired adventurer arrive before her for once. Miss Lily, that's a bit of an overreaction.
Belle muttered weakly, scratching her chin.
Ha! You don't get to talk, Miss Belle. Who's the one who always makes me wait forever and never shows up on time, every single day? Lily said indignantly, clear annoyance in her tone.
That's because my aunt's training sessions are too brutal, my body can barely move afterwards.
Belle thought with a wry smile. Right, sorry.
Belle bowed her head in apology until Lily was satisfied.
Since you said you're sorry, I guess Lily will forgive you.
Lily crossed her arms, looking smugly content. Then her expression softened, curiosity flickering in her eyes.
That said, is it really true? You didn't lie to me about what you said yesterday, right?
She leaned forward slightly, a small blush creeping onto her face.
Ha! What are you talking about? Belle asked, genuinely puzzled. I mean, when you told me you were training with Mr. Judas, is that true?
Belle instinctively took a step back as the memory of Judas, drenched in sweat, completely shirtless,
flashed across her mind.
Her cheeks instantly turned red.
Yeah, it just happened.
Belle said, scratching the back of her head while trying to look away.
How? Lily suddenly shouted. No offense, Miss Belle, but how did someone like you manage to convince someone from another familia to train with you? Especially someone as amazing as Mr. Judas? Lily pressed further, stepping closer until she was practically in Belle's face.
The white-haired girl flinched and backed away, breaking into a nervous sweat.
You didn't try to seduce him, did you?
Lily narrowed her eyes, giving Belle a skeptical once-over before sighing.
No way, you're way too naive and innocent to pull off something like that.
She shook her head, dismissing the ridiculous thought.
Seduce? Me? Belle's mind blanked, steam practically rising from her head.
For some reason, she could almost hear her grandpa's booming laughter echoing in her mind, his thumb raised in approval. "My dear Belle, heroes are weak when it comes to women." His laughter echoed again, full of mischief and warmth. "Doesn't matter how brave they are in battle, one wink, one smile, and they crumble faster than a goblin under a greatsword." He crossed his arms, the lewd grin on his face widening. "What garbage are you teaching her?" A menacing presence loomed over him. Gospel. Of course, before he could even finish or explain himself, Althea would always step in and send her grandpa flying like Team Rocket, causing the roof to blow off the house. Belle smiled fondly at the memories of the time before she came to Orario. Inside the dungeon, a small army of adventurers marched forward. The sound of metal boots clanging against the floor and the steady rhythm of footsteps echoed along the dungeon walls. "Ugh! What a shame for us to retreat like this!" A frustrated female voice rang out. The speaker was a tan-skinned, flat-chested woman wearing as little clothing as possible, the ever-lively Amazoness, Tiona Hiriut. "Tiona, are you doubting the captain's orders?" A sharp voice cut in. Her twin sister, Tioni, snapped her head toward her with a glare, brows creased. They shared the same dark skin and style of revealing clothes, but unlike Tiona, Tioni's figure was considerably more well-endowed. "Tioni. I don't think Tiona meant it like that," a soft, meek voice interjected. The twins turned toward the speaker, an amber-haired elf wearing a light pink dress, her lips curled into a dry smile. "Oomph, she better be." Tioni huffed before running ahead toward a blonde-haired Paolum walking at the front of the formation. "Everyone, we're about to enter the middle floors. Our time to head home is drawing near." Raoul, a black-haired human boy, called out loudly. He might have looked plain and unassuming, but Raoul was a level 4 adventurer of the Loki Familia, and the leader of the second-string team. The rest of the group finally relaxed their shoulders, quiet sighs of relief passing through their ranks. The tension that had gripped them for hours began to fade. Finally. "I can't wait to take a bath and wash off this disgusting acid smell." Tiona cheered, her usual cheerful grin returning at the thought of leaving the dungeon. "MMN." Beside her, the golden-haired swordswoman gave a soft hum of agreement. Her golden eyes matched her hair, and her expression remained perfectly neutral, serene and unreadable like that of a doll. Her hand never once left the hilt of her sword. The sword princess, Ace Wallenstein, stayed alert even now. Then. Question mark. She noticed that the march had suddenly stopped. "Ha? What's going on?" Tiona asked, curiosity sparking as the sound of deep, guttural roars echoed from the front. She pushed forward to get a better look. "Looks like a group of minotaurs has blocked our path." The calm voice of Riveriel Joself, vice-captain of the Loki Familia, echoed as her sharp gaze focused on the massive, bull-headed monsters ahead. "It appears so." Findame, their captain, muttered before turning toward the black-haired boy beside him. "Raoul, take command. This will be a perfect opportunity for you to gain experience." Though nervous, Raoul quickly nodded and saluted. "Why yes, sir." Hee, this is going to be fun." "Hey, you bull bastards. Come here and get crushed." "Moo." But just as Raoul began issuing orders, the sight of Bet, Tiona, and other top-level adventurers stepping forward sent the minotaurs into a panic. The monsters froze for a moment, then turned tail and bolted in the opposite direction. "Ha? What just happened? Did the minotaurs just run away? What the hell? They're monsters. They're supposed to charge at us like mindless beasts." The Loki Familia members exchanged baffled looks. "Those minotaurs are heading toward the upper floors. Everyone, stop them." While the others were still stunned, it was Finn who reacted first, shouting sharply as realization struck. Chapter 78, A New Start. On the 17th floor of the dungeon, a horde of minotaurs could be seen running away. "Quickly! Chase after them! Who knows what a group of monsters in a confused state might do?" Riveria shouted, and the rest of the Loki Familia immediately deployed. "You've got to be kidding me.
Tiona muttered, her fist sending a minotaur flying and snapping its spine. Ace unsheathed her sword and gave chase. There are other adventurers in this dungeon. If those minotaurs aren't stopped. With a single slash, she bisected a minotaur cleanly in two. Lower-level adventurers won't be able to handle them. They'll die. That horrid thought made a bead of sweat trickle down her face. It was then they noticed something. Hey! Those minotaurs. Isn't that the stairway that leads to the upper floors? No way. They're heading up. Crap. The low-class adventurers above are in danger. The Loki Familia members shouted in disbelief and sped up their pursuit. We'll handle the ones on the 17th floor. The rest of you, chase after those that got away. Tioni barked, realizing the danger they had unleashed. There are too many. Some of them have already escaped to the upper floors. Everyone, spread out. Leave one person to guard each floor. Even amidst chaos, they managed to come up with a sound strategy on the fly. Die, you bull-headed bastards. Bet, the werewolf of the Loki Familia, snarled as he delivered a kick that instantly beheaded a minotaur. He paused, sniffing the air, picking up the lingering scent of several more. Is that the Sword Princess? The Loki Familia? What the hell are minotaurs doing up here? Other adventurers who witnessed the scene couldn't help but be stunned. Ace, for her part, sliced through the monsters without mercy, moving from one floor to the next, relentlessly pursuing them. The 16th floor cleared. The 15th cleared. The 14th. 13th. 12th. 11th. 10th. 9th. 8th. And 7th. Like a monster-slaying machine, Ace annihilated every creature unfortunate enough to cross her path. Scary. Even the other adventurers who saw her couldn't decide who was more terrifying, the monsters or her. 3 left, they must be on the 6th floor. Ace thought, after slaying the final minotaur on the 7th. Ace, I've caught their scent. Come with me. Bet said as he sprinted forward, and Ace immediately followed. 6th floor, dungeon. A small 2-person party could be seen, a frontline fighter and her supporter. Hap. Belle twisted her body and slashed with her dagger. Scree. The dying cry of a dungeon lizard echoed as its magic stone clattered to the ground. You really made quick work of these monsters, Miss Belle. Lily smiled as she skipped over and collected the drops. Honestly, with your abilities, we could probably go as deep as the 8th floor without any trouble. She continued, slipping the magic stones into her pouch. Well, I'd love to, but Miss Ina can be a bit of a worrywart. Belle replied with an exasperated smile. Just as the two were about to continue, they heard panicked screams nearby. Belle's eyes widened. Without hesitation, she dashed toward the source. Wait. Miss Belle. Don't do anything reckless. Lily shouted, trying to grab her, but Belle was already gone. Ugh, fine. Lily gritted her teeth and chased after her. Ah! Help us! Run! Run away! Belle skidded to a halt when she saw a group of adventurers fleeing in panic. From their equipment, she could tell. They were beginners, just like her. What happened? She called out, making the adventurers pause for just a moment. Ah, damn it, she's just a rookie. Forget it, just run. Seeing Belle's small frame and cheap gear, they dismissed her as another weakling and sprinted past. Wait. Belle reached out, but the leader snapped at her in panic. There are minotaurs. If you don't want to die, run. The words hit her like a hammer. Belle froze, and when Lily arrived seconds later, the color drained from her face. Minotaurs? On the upper floors? As if on cue, deep, guttural roars echoed through the tunnel, followed by heavy footsteps. Turning their heads, they saw them. 3 minotaurs charged toward them, massive, muscular, and monstrous. For beginners, their presence alone screamed certain death. Why are there minotaurs here? This doesn't make sense. Lily trembled.
This wasn't the first time Lily had seen these bull-headed monsters. Though only a level 1, she had years of experience exploring the upper and middle floors of the dungeon as a supporter for various adventurer parties.
Miss Belle, let's get out of here.
She grabbed Belle's arm, trying to pull her away.
Miss Belle? But Belle didn't move. No. She refused to move.
Miss Lily, if we run, not only you, but even those adventurers from before will be in danger.
Belle muttered quietly, sweat forming on her brow.
She knew, just from a glance, that the speed of a low-level adventurer could never hope to outpace that of a minotaur. They'll catch up to us quickly, and we'll all die, not to mention the adventurers on the floors above will also be in danger. Which means someone has to stay here and slow them down. Belle muttered quietly as beads of sweat began to form on her forehead.
What are you saying? Miss Belle, don't be a fool.
This is no time to be playing hero.
Lily snapped and tried pulling harder.
I'm sorry, Lily. Belle turned toward her and apologized before pushing her away.
Roar!
The minotaurs were already in front, charging headfirst with their horns as weapons. Belle quickly grabbed the daggers from her hip.
Lily! Run!
Belle shouted at the top of her lungs as she engaged the minotaurs in combat.
Miss Belle!
Seeing this, Lily's body trembled, but she forced herself to stand back up.
I'm sorry. She hesitated for a few seconds before running away. Belle smiled as Lily's small frame disappeared into the distance.
Then, in the next second, the look in her eyes turned serious as she wiped the blood from her lips.
Your opponent is me.
Her grip on the dagger tightened, her focus now completely on the monsters in front of her, unaware of the two figures who had just arrived at the scene.
So bring it on.
A drop in a bucket, small, insignificant, yet capable of creating ripples that reshape fate itself.
Just like this moment.
Destiny's threads have tangled, and the fated meeting has been rewritten.
Chapter 79, Belle Cranel vs. The Minotaurs Part 1.
Bet's ears twitched. He heard it, the unmistakable sounds of battle echoing from another part of the floor. Raising his nose, he sniffed the air. His beastman senses were sharp, his sense of smell far beyond human. The scent was unmistakable.
Minotaurs. 3 of them. Ace.
The two sprinted toward the noise, their boots clanging against the stone floor. The sounds of clashing steel and bestial roars grew louder, sharper.
What's that weakling doing? Bet muttered.
They soon spotted the scene, a lone adventurer locked in a desperate struggle against 3 minotaurs.
A rookie?
Ace, ready to leap into action and cut them down, halted mid-step. The fighter was a human girl, red eyes, white hair, and an appearance so delicate she almost resembled a rabbit.
Level 1? Is she trying to get herself killed?
Bet growled. Even from a distance, his seasoned eyes as a level 5 adventurer told him everything. The human girl was just a mere level 1.
Oi, weakling.
I know there's a rule against stealing another adventurer's prey, but this is above your pay grade.
Back off before.
He froze.
Wait. Ace, am I seeing this right?
The werewolf's golden eyes narrowed in disbelief.
That weakling, that level 1 nobody, is actually keeping up? Ace gave a small nod. She hadn't moved an inch since they arrived.
Bet fell silent, his sharp gaze fixed on the fight before him.
He recalled what he knew about minotaurs. Level 2 monsters, symbols of brute strength and endurance. Among the strongest beasts in the middle floors.
For a level 1 adventurer, facing even one was practically a death sentence.
What the hell?
His mind flickered back to his own first encounter with a minotaur.
Back when he was still level 1, all he could do was run, unable to fight back.
It was only after reaching level 2 that he finally took one down by himself.
Who is she?
Even after seeing it with his own eyes, Bet had a hard time believing it. The ground shook as 3 minotaurs surrounded Belle, their massive frames casting shadows that swallowed her slender form whole. Each breath she took echoed against the walls, steady, controlled.
Calm heart. Sharp mind. Read their movements.
You can't match their strength, so move smarter.
Find its mana stone and destroy it.
Her aunt's cold, cutting voice echoed in her mind.
I know. I have no intention of dying here,
she thought as her heart began to race. Drenched in sweat, she swallowed her fear and steeled her nerves.
My first real challenge in the dungeon. So far, things had been easy.
The monsters on the upper floors, while stronger than those on the surface, had barely given her any trouble.
If I survive this, Miss Ina is going to yell at me.
Her gaze never wavered, though she could sense eyes watching her from afar. She didn't question it, she just focused on the enemies before her.
Bring it!
As if recognizing the challenge in her eyes, the first Minotaur roared and lunged, its massive fist crashing down like a boulder.
Belle's eyes narrowed.
In an instant, she shifted her weight, sidestepping with graceful precision.
Too close.
The blow shattered the floor where she'd stood. She darted in, her twin daggers flashing like streaks of silver. She darted in low, slicing across its thigh to break its balance. Her blade bit deep, not enough to kill, but enough to slow it down.
The beast roared, swinging again.
Belle retreated just in time, her boots skidding against the dust.
The second Minotaur charged, horns first.
Belle jumped to the side, but the sheer wind pressure of its charge sent her sprawling to the ground. Pain shot through her arm as she hit hard, her daggers clattering beside her. She barely rolled aside before a foot the size of her torso stomped down, cracking the floor where she'd been.
Damn it! She hissed, snatching her weapons back. The monsters regrouped, 3 hulking forms circling her, red eyes burning in the dim light.
Their muscles rippled with every breath, each step shaking the earth.
Belle's mind raced. She couldn't overpower them. Not even close. But she could outthink them.
They're strong but slow, thick hides, low agility.
Use that.
From their short clash, Belle didn't stop analyzing her opponents.
Gathering information, especially in the dungeon, was crucial. Knowing or not knowing could mean the difference between life and death.
That habit had been literally beaten into her by her vicious aunt. The same practice that once tortured her and made her feel like she had experienced hell was now helping her survive. The nearest one swung again, a wild, heavy punch. Belle ducked under and slashed twice, fast and shallow. Blood splattered, but the beast barely flinched. The Minotaur growled, pivoting to face her, exposing its chest. Belle's eyes locked on the faint, glowing pulse beneath the skin.
The mana stone.
She dashed forward, but the second Minotaur barreled in, blocking her path. Its massive arm caught her mid-sprint, hurling her into a wall. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs.
It hurts.
She coughed, forcing herself to stand, her knees trembling. But my mother hits way harder than this. She clutched her stomach and bit her lip.
So get up. Always get up.
Belle wiped the blood from her lip and steadied her breathing. Her body suddenly felt light as a feather, and the pain dulled dramatically.
Ah, finally, my skill.
Tenebris Vitalis, a skill she had awakened shortly after being blessed with a Felna. Born from the punishment Althea forced her to endure almost every day, this skill was created to help her survive it.
I can do this. The daggers glinted faintly as she raised them again.
The first Minotaur came again, stomping toward her. This time, she moved before it could swing. A low dash, tight step, pivot, her body flowed like water. Her right dagger pierced its forearm, deflecting its punch just enough for her to climb its arm and reach its chest. The monster roared, thrashing violently. Belle stabbed again, this time into the faint light beneath its ribs.
The dagger struck the mana stone.
A burst of blue light flared as the creature froze mid-roar before collapsing into dust and ash.
One down.
She muttered, and in the darkness of the dungeon, her crimson eyes burned with a quiet, defiant light.
Chapter 80, Belle Crannel vs. The Minotaurs Part 2.
The sounds of battle echoed through the dungeon's stone walls, a thunderous rhythm that reverberated deep within the sixth floor. There, two figures stood amidst the gloom, a golden-haired swordswoman and a silver-furred werewolf, both witnessing a breathtaking clash unfold before their eyes.
Ace? Bat? What are you two just standing there for? A lively voice called out behind them. Neither needed to turn to know who it was.
Tiona jogged toward them, followed closely by the rest of the Loki familia, gathering into a tight formation. It wasn't just the executives or the elites present, the entire Loki familia had gathered.
There are still 3 of those things left? And you let a rookie fight them alone?
Tiona exclaimed, eyes widening as she saw 3 minotaurs surrounding a lone white-haired adventurer. When the rookie was sent crashing into a wall, Tiona clenched her fists and stepped forward.
Well, if you guys aren't going to finish them off, then I will. But before she could move. Roar!
The death cry of a minotaur tore through the air. In the next instant, its massive body collapsed into ash, its magic stone shattered cleanly.
What? Tiona froze. She wasn't the only one.
Even the seasoned adventurers around her, those experienced and keen enough to gauge the rookie's strength and level at a glance, were left speechless.
How is that possible?
Tiona appeared beside her, disbelief etched on her face.
Ace? Bet, what is happening here?
Riveria approached with graceful steps, her emerald eyes narrowing as she studied the scene.
TCH. What's it look like, old hag? It's exactly what you're seeing. Bet muttered, clicking his tongue in irritation.
Ace, however, remained silent, her golden eyes fixed solely on the white-haired girl battling the remaining minotaurs.
That lass looks so thin and fragile, yet she fights with that kind of ferocity? Gareth rumbled, stroking his beard.
It's not just her spirit, Riveria added, her voice calm but impressed. Look closely, her movements are refined, efficient.
Barely any wasted motion. That level of control takes years of training.
Finn folded his arms, a faint smile forming on his lips.
Such an extraordinary rookie. Whoever trained her must be someone remarkable. A level 1 took down a minotaur?
Raoul whispered, his voice trembling in disbelief. Even the amber-haired elf who stopped beside Ace was left speechless.
The Loki familia didn't move.
They were supposed to head to the surface by now, but no one said a word. They were too captivated by the battle unfolding before them.
Come on, you can do it. Win! Tiona cheered, a bright smile lighting up her face. Why are there so many people watching me?
Belle screamed in her mind, her head spinning slightly from the realization that she had gathered such a large audience.
Idiot! Focus on the enemies in front of you. The imaginary voice of her aunt barked in her head, snapping her back into a battle-ready stance. She didn't even have the luxury to celebrate slaying the first minotaur before the remaining 2 bellowed in rage.
The second one charged while the third circled to flank her. Belle gritted her teeth and ran, not away, but toward the charging beast.
At the last second, she dropped to a slide, ducking between its legs, her dagger slicing across its inner thigh. It stumbled, roaring in pain.
The third minotaur swung at her, but she leapt back, the fist missing by inches. She countered, a cross-slash across its chest, then a spin to evade the retaliatory swing. Her breaths grew ragged, her arms heavy. But her skill, Tenebris Vitalis, was keeping her upright, letting her continue to fight even as her stamina was fading. Keep your center, keep your rhythm, don't lose your flow. The second minotaur turned again, and raged. Belle used its own fury against it, sidestepping at the last moment so it collided with the third. The crash echoed through the chamber. Belle didn't hesitate, she dashed in, climbing onto one's shoulder, using the other's body as leverage. Her daggers glimmered.
Ha! Both blades plunged into the exposed chest of the nearest minotaur, striking the core dead center. A burst of blue light, and another fell. Woohoo! She killed the second one. Just one more and she'll win.
Tiona cheered, raising both arms high in the air.
Unbelievable. I'm a level 2, and I don't think I could even pull that off. What familia is she from?
The lower-level members of the Loki familia muttered among themselves, astonishment filling their eyes.
You know, this reminds me of Argonaut.
Tiona said, her eyes locked on the white-haired girl as she dodged and counterattacked against an opponent much larger and stronger than herself.
That hero story you like to read?
Tioni muttered, glancing at her sister for a moment.
Yeah. I really like that story. Tiona smiled contentedly. Roar! The last Minotaur let out an enraged bellow. It's agitated.
Belle gritted her teeth and leapt aside as it charged toward her. But the creature's massive hand caught her mid-air, iron fingers closing around her arm. She gasped as her body was lifted off the ground. Her dagger clattered away. The Minotaur raised her toward its jaws, ready to crush her in one bite. Desperation flared. She twisted violently and stabbed the Minotaur's wrist. It roared in pain, staggering back as it finally released her.
One arm now hung limp and useless. A chance.
Belle dove for the dagger on the ground and charged forward.
Hap!
Just as she thrust, the Minotaur blocked with its other arm, shielding its magic stone from destruction.
It can actually do that?
Stunned by its resilience, Belle's eyes widened as the Minotaur swung its injured arm wildly.
The dagger snapped in half. Oh no!
She stared at the broken blade and bit her lip.
One of her weapons got destroyed. Now she's down to just one dagger.
Bet muttered, his golden eyes narrowing as he shoved his hands into his pockets. The others watched in silence, holding their breath for Belle's next move.
Belle inhaled deeply, forcing herself to stay calm. It's fine, now that its arms are injured, its attack patterns have become limited. She adjusted her grip on the remaining dagger.
As the Minotaur charged again, Belle sidestepped and slashed its Achilles tendon, sending it crashing to one knee.
Take this.
Seizing the moment, she hurled the broken dagger like a throwing star.
It buried itself in the monster's eye.
The Minotaur roared, thrashing violently in pain.
An opening.
Belle didn't hesitate, she dashed forward, kicking off the ground and driving her dagger straight into its chest. The creature swung its massive arm in a final act of rage, but she screamed and pushed with everything she had.
Ah!
The blade lodged deeper, and with a flash, the stone shattered. Light burst through its body as it disintegrated, taking Belle with it in a shower of magic dust. She landed hard on her knees, gasping for breath. The air was thick with glowing motes, fading slowly into silence.
3 Minotaurs, gone.
Belle stared at her bloodied hands and the chipped edge of her dagger. Her arms trembled. Then she smiled faintly.
It's over.
That wraps up this part of What If a Venerated Soul Reincarnated in Danmachi World.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.